Hello guys, thank you for tuning in. This is Scott from Nostalgic Nightmares and welcome to my review of Shivers number 2, A Ghastly Shade of Green. Now I'm actually a little bit nervous recording this one. I was nervous last time because it was my first ever review, and I'm a bit nervous this time because when I did my last review, not long after I created a Twitter account, which I'll put the link in the description below. It's basically at Nostalgic Nightmares but with all the vowels removed. So I created a Twitter account and posted a link to the first review, and I tagged the author in it, MD Spenser, and he followed me, which means he'll know when I do future reviews of his books, so he might be listening, so hi if you are. So I'm potentially nervous about criticising some of his books now, but I do my best to be as fair and honest as I can. So yeah, Shivers number 2, A Ghastly Shade of Green, is one I picked out of a little box that I put in with all the different sheets of paper. I wasn't overly keen about reading this one. I don't really know why. I'm not going to lie, I don't like the title. I think it's a really strange title. And it's all about jungles. It's not something I know much about. Whereas in the last book I kind of identified with the character being scared of animals, at least like on farms and stuff, because I'm a massive wuss. So this one I didn't really know much about jungles and rainforests. So I wasn't overly excited about it, but anyway, I'll go through the book and what happens, and I'll tell you my thoughts as we go along and a bit more afterwards. So this is 120 pages long, and consists of 20 chapters, so each chapter is actually a bit longer in this one, which is good. In terms of the characters, our main character is a guy called Jason, and he's around 12 years old, I believe, and he's from Kansas. And he's going on a vacation with his mum and his little brother Timmy, who's about 3.5 years old. The reason the dad's not there is because their dad is a scientist who is off on a business trip in Alaska to drill for oil. And the mum is a botanist who works at the local university. So she goes to like weird countries to study plants and all this kind of stuff. So they're going on this trip to Florida. No. Are they? Yeah, they're going on a trip to Florida. And the parents, or the mum, is saying, oh, it's somewhere better than Disney World. Which, to a kid, there's nowhere better than Disney World. I'm a massive Disney fan. It's like my favourite holiday place to go still. So if you told me as a kid we're going somewhere better than Disney World, I would have been convinced that you were lying, but mostly pretty excited. So anyway, the mum and the two sons, Jason and Timmy, are going on a holiday to Florida. And Jason's confused because the mum has brought her along her botany equipment, and if they're going on a holiday, what does she need to bring her equipment for? So he doesn't really know what's going on, but it does mention two things which are kind of not overly important to the story, but they do have their kind of impact. One is that he brings along his lucky stone. He just has this stone that's his lucky item. And they bring along their dog called Tannen, who's a beagle. So as they're going towards their destination in the car, they actually go down this dirt track in the middle of a jungle, which is like a giant driveway into the swamp. So they realise pretty quickly they're not going on this really great holiday. They're going into the Everglades, and literally you can't see anything for miles. There's just trees and the swamp, and not really much about. And as they approach where they're finally going, they see this small wooden shack. So Jason's clearly disappointed. Being 3.5 years old, Timmy doesn't really know a lot of difference. But Jason is very much like, what the hell is going on? Because they were promised this great holiday and they're in this small shack in the middle of the jungle. And they go into the shack and there's really small rooms. There's like a living room, kitchen, joint area. And there's 2 different bedrooms and a bathroom. No, there's not. There's 2 different bedrooms and there's a bathroom that's in like a small outhouse behind the shack, which in the middle of a jungle has got to be pretty scary, to be fair. Like, I don't like outhouse bathrooms anyway. You get them a lot when you stay in like really old houses in England, like old Victorian houses. The back bathrooms were kind of separate, but they're just like in a garden, which is okay. But like a random shack in the middle of the woods is it's the middle of the jungle, but it always kind of reminds me of Friday the 13th. Because there's the odd scene where they have like the outhouse, which is like a toilet in the middle of the woods somewhere, and that's pretty much where they end up getting killed. But they arrive at this place, and the mum's really trying to convince them how great the place is. There'll be a nice adventure in the middle of the jungle. But Jason's not really believing any of it, and He talks about how there's alligators, buzzards and snakes. Oh my. I can't remember if it's the mum or Jason that says that. I've just wrote down alligators, buzzards and snakes. Oh my. Because it's a clear reference to The Wizard of Oz with the lions, tigers and bears. Oh my. Because they don't know what's in the woods. So in this one, there's alligators, birds, buzzards and snakes. So they don't know what they're going to do if they ever encounter these. But Jason's pretty bored there. There's no technology. There's nothing to do. There's no computers he can bring along. There's no phones to ring his friends. I think this was the time before kids were allowed cell phones, thank God. There's no running water, so all they've got to really do is they've got like colouring books and puzzle books. And the mum tries to teach them about plants, so even though he's not interested, there's not much else for them to do. So as they go outside, the mum starts to talk to them more about the plants that are around and why she's there. And she basically brought her equipment along because she has this theory about a plant called sawgrass, which has a sharp edge to it. And the theory is that it contains chemicals that will somehow make a great fertiliser. So she wants to do some experiments on these particular plants to see if her theory is correct or whether she can turn these into fertiliser. And if she is correct, she can patent them, and they can basically bring up loads of machinery and bulldozers into the Everglades to get all these plants together and make as much fertiliser as possible. And the mum, who's basically painted in the item and the process, will be rolling in it. She'll be a millionaire. So she goes into the swamp to get some cuttings. And there's this really weird scene, which really reminds me of Snow White. Her mum's in the... I think she goes into a swamp, or they're near a swamp. Like I say, I need to write more details when I make notes, because I just write little details, thinking, right, I remember this when I talk about it. And I come back to it, I'm like, maybe not. But anyway, there's this log, which Jason's convinced is an alligator, who's coming towards to attack them. But it turns out it's just... I kind of said that in the wrong way, I kind of gave away the theory then. But yeah, he sees this alligator coming towards them, and it turns out it's just a log. Which reminds me of the scene in Snow White where she's lost in the forest after being attacked by the huntsman. And she sees all this crazy stuff and these animals, thinking she's all these animals and things that she thinks are attacking her, and the alligators are just logs that she's going crazy. Anyway, so there's a log, there's no alligator. And the mum explains that alligators only are attacked when they're provoked or they're guarding something, like they're young. But when they are hungry, they are known to eat small animals and maybe small children. I'm not sure whether that was a good idea to tell your children, but whatever. And that night, Timmy's in bed asleep, and Jason's really scared because it's the middle of the jungle, so there's going to be loads of noises. Like, I always get amazed in England when it's so quiet outside that all the traffic dies down. When you can hear birds. I mean, birds are not a lot, but that's pretty much all you can hear. And even, like, I went on a holiday when I was young to like a summer camp thing, and there in the middle of the night you can hear animals and creatures that are in the woods. Nothing like scary, like bears and stuff that you get over in America and Canada. In England it's pretty tame, but I imagine that in the jungle you've got like snakes and spiders and crocodiles, birds, insects, mosquitoes, and all these things, these wildlife will be making noise throughout the night, so it's not going to be quiet at night. Whereas most of the time in most places, when night comes, when the traffic and the people die down, it goes quiet. But over here, there's all these scary noises, and it's really hot. Because obviously in the middle of the jungle, it's like a heat wave. And I forgot to mention, like, when they described going towards the shack, the trees were like lining each side of the dirt road. So it's basically like you can't see or hear, you can't see much out. There's like no light coming in. That's going to make it really, really humid. So this shack is really, really hot. So he can't sleep. So he ends up reading poetry with his mum. Because, like I say, there's not much else to do other than read books and magazines and stuff. When they hear this like really loud banging on the roof, and Timmy wakes up and starts crying. But when he's safe, the mum and Jason go out to investigate. And they think it's basically some sort of animal that's attacking the shack. And they take out the torch and they shine the light on the roof. And basically they see nothing. They just see trees, basically. There's no animals that they can see. They're just some branches that may have fallen down or knocked onto the roof. So they take Timmy to bed, and For once, in a good parenting technique in these kind of books, the mum actually sits Jason down to talk to him about what's scaring him, and to talk him through kind of logic and why it shouldn't scare him. And normally in these books, the parents just dismiss everything about the kid. Oh, sorry if you heard like a banging noise, I just hit the thing that my microphone's resting on. So yeah, normally the parents they just dismiss their children. They're really bad parents, and they go to work and they come home. Parents try to talk about what's scaring them, even if it is like crazy monsters and stuff, which you're not going to believe. They just don't listen to them. So I did like the fact that in this one, the mum sat him down and went, "What's scaring you?" But tomorrow, she said, I'm going to go out and do some research, and then we're going to go on one of the airboats, which are like one of these boats you can get on in the swamp, and it just drives you around. So before he goes to bed, he puts his lucky stone, he kind of puts it somewhere close to him so that he will feel a bit more protected, and he puts it on the bedside cabinet. But when he wakes up, the lucky stone is gone, and where the lucky stone was, there's like a green slime, which always kind of reminds me of Monster Blood from Goosebumps, but I shouldn't really cross the series over, I don't want to offend the author. So, anyway, the stone is gone, and there's this lucky... No. The lucky stone is gone, and there's this green slime where the stone was. So Mum comes along and she cleans it up with soap and water, and basically explains that it looks like it's just some sort of plant mucus. An animal must have come in when they were asleep, maybe stole the stone, and dragged in some mucus or some swamp fluid or like plant juice with it. But it said there's some on there's some on the cabinet and there's some on the floor. It basically explains not to touch it, just she'll take some samples, whatever. So after breakfast, they go walking, and she starts teaching him about trees, some of the trees that are around. And there's one called like a traveller's palm, which looks like a palm tree, but it's not. It's got these like curved leaves which hold like a quart of water, which is pretty handy to know if you're in the middle of the jungle and you've got no water. And they go around doing more research, and she's telling him about the plants. And she eventually takes them back to the cabinet, or she goes and does some of the experiments that she wants to do while she's in the jungle, leaving Jason alone with Timmy. And Jason sat on the porch reading when he hears these footsteps coming from around the side of the shack. And this fat, hairy, ugly guy with like a right eye patch on him, with like some teeth missing, comes around the corner and he's like, "Have you got any children I can eat?" I do apologise for that voice. I'm terrible at impressions. That was a really, really bad voice, so I apologise. He basically comes around and says, "Have you got any children I can eat?" And he's got this like thick, dirty, hairy beard. And he's basically very quickly admits that he's just joking. He's just trying to freak the boy out, which... Okay, this man is a man who lives in the jungle. That's his habitat. He knows the jungle inside out. So he's probably quite comfortable in his environment. We've got a kid who's about 12, and he basically threatened to eat them. I mean, that's just not okay. It's not okay. So I'm going to guess that this guy, because he lives in the jungle, is a little bit crazy and doesn't know the boundaries that he's crossing. And it kind of becomes clear later on that he really doesn't know what the boundaries are and how freaky he is. But I'll get to that. He makes it clear that he's joking, and he informs Jason that his name is Snake Eye, or that's what he goes by, Snake Eye. And his eye actually got eaten by an alligator. So why he calls himself Snake Eye? Oh, I do know why he calls himself Snake Eye, because in Casino, Snake Eye is like 2 1s, I believe. Or 1 1. Anyway. His eye got eaten by an alligator, but he's lived in the jungle for about 10 years, so he knows his way around. He loves the Everglade. He thinks it's like the perfect place to live. It's the perfect place on the globe. And he just hopes that no one comes along to mess it up. So I knew at this point, him mentioning he wants nothing to come along to mess it up, and the fact that his mum, Jason's mum, is doing experiments to potentially destroy parts of the rainforest if they bring in machinery, there's going to be some sort of clash between the two at some point. And he explains that the rainforest always finds a way to survive. It's a living organism. It's plants, it's trees, it's all alive, so the rainforest will find a way to survive. And it explains that anyone he sees that trying to destroy the rainforest he's going to kill with his axe, his hatchet. And he gets quite chatty about his past, but Jason's quite freaked out because they're in the middle of nowhere. There's this stranger who's joked about killing his kid, killing his brother, and explains about killing people with his hatchet. So he tries to get rid of him, but Snake Eyes is not having any of it. He's really offended. And he basically explains that you're not being very neighbourly. I'm not sure if I want to go now. Now, I as an adult, would get really freaked out by this point, because when you meet someone, whether you're in a club or out in life, and they overstay their welcome, it's difficult to get rid of them, because you don't like to just go. Or at least in England, most of us are quite courteous and quite polite, so you don't just want to go like, I don't want you to be here anymore, please leave. So you try and get rid of them as kind of subtly as possible. But when it gets to a point where you're basically telling them to go because they're not leaving, and they're going, I don't want to go, I'm not leaving you alone. And I notice this sometimes when you're on nights out in a nightclub, possibly because people have had a few too many to drink, they just don't leave you alone. It's quite a scary situation, because if they're not going to leave, you can't force them to leave unless you use kind of brute force and violence, and that never ends well. So for a 12-year-old to be in a situation where they're against an adult who's saying, I don't want to go, and you're not being nice to me, I don't want to leave yet, it's quite a scary thought. Now, I was talking to my friend about when I read books and watch horror films, and they didn't see a lot of the horror that I saw or the scary parts that I saw, because I have quite a vivid imagination, and I really put myself into the character's point of view where I can, which is why at this point I can get that Jason will be really freaked out. He's in the middle of nowhere and a stranger's threatening not to leave. So I get it, I do get it. But eventually he does leave. After kind of being a bit weird and standoffish, he does leave. And Jason realises he hasn't seen Tannin for a while, the dog, if you hadn't thought, because the dog really has no input to this story, except for one bit coming up. So he realises that he hasn't seen Tannin for a while, so he makes sure Timmy's kind of okay and safe in the shack with a colouring book, and tells Timmy not to leave. And goes looking out in the jungle for the dog, which is a really stupid idea, because the jungle is fucking massive. So he goes out looking for Tannin, and he sees up in the distance, in the sky, that there's some buzzards circling around, flying in a circle. Now, I thought it was vultures that fly overhead where someone's died. It's like a thing in the desert where there's like a dead body or a dead animal. I thought it was vultures that flied over that location in a circle, but apparently it's buzzards. And Jason sees these buzzards flying around in a circle and decides to run over to see what was going on, and in a really horrible turn of events, at the base of a very large tree is Tannin, and he's died. He sees Tannin's lifeless body and runs over to it and starts crying because his dog has died, and sees there's this large green leaf from a palm tree that's basically wrapped itself around the dog's neck and strangled it to death. Now, it's kind of a running joke between people who read a lot of horror or watch a lot of horror films that dogs are only ever introduced in these situations to get killed, or dogs are only ever introduced in these situations to alert the main characters that there's danger afoot. Like you always see in kind of horror films like Halloween, where there's a dog barking outside the house because Michael Myers is coming, and then you hear like the dog getting killed or being attacked and going quiet, and they go out to investigate what's going on with the dog, and then they get killed. So yeah, it's a running joke that the dogs only exist to get killed, but I never really remember this much from teenage books or children's books. The dogs always survive. It's kind of I thought they did anyway, because kids have such a connection with the dogs, as I do, and most people do. So I wasn't expecting to read this, them to find the dog dead. I was actually quite shocked that they found this dead dog's body that's been strangled to death. And it was really sad. But Jason kind of comes under the impression that because he was quite rude to Snake Eyes, or Snake Eye, whatever it is, that he went out into the jungle and strangled Tannin with the palm leaf because he was so offended that this guy was rude to him and he wanted to spend more time there, that he really panics. So, realising that he's left Timmy alone in the shack, he starts running back to the jungle, the shack, because if Snake Eyes has dragged Tannen away and strangled Tannen in the jungle, he's now left Timmy alone in the shack. So he's got to run back and get to Timmy. So he runs back as quick as he can, and he's screaming, Timmy, Timmy, Timmy. Yeah, he's running through the jungle, and he's screaming for Timmy, and he comes into this like clearing, which is like an open area in the middle of the jungle, and he turns around and Snake Eyes there, and he picks up his axe and throws it at Jason. And Jason like dodges out the way, but then he realises that Snake Eye was trying to protect him. There was a snake by Jason's foot, a poisonous snake. So Snake Eye threw the axe at the snake to kill it, to stop Jason getting poisoned. And he actually thanks Snake Eye for saving his life, and it actually turns out Snake Eye is quite a friendly character. He tells them all about the dog that's died, and how he's found the dog with the palm tree leaf wrapped around his neck, or what's known as a palm frond. That's like the technical term for it. And Snake Eye describes this myth, this legend. It dates back like hundreds and hundreds of years, back to what are called the Seminole Indians. And there was always this myth called the Procarim, which is about the revenge of the plants, and about how the jungle will find its way to survive. And it describes these two Indians back in the day that they were in a canoe, and they were basically fishing, and they were hacking away at some plants while they were doing it, because the plants were in the way or something. And the wooden canoe just starts to sink out of nowhere, and the buckets they were using to help them with the fishing, I guess, jump up out of their hands and start smacking them on the heads. So they like abandon ship and swim to the shore after being like almost drowned. But eventually they were actually strangled by palm tree leaves again, like the palm fronds. So it kind of looks like there was always this legend that they were attacking the jungle by hacking away at the plants. So the jungle fought back and tried to kill them, basically, or killed them. So by this point, if you haven't figured out what the twist of the story is, I'd be very, very surprised, because I saw this coming a mile off. The twist doesn't happen yet, but I saw the twist towards the end of the book, and the reason why all this is happening I thought was pretty obvious, but I don't know. As a kid, I might not have done. Anyway, they part ways, Snake Eye and Jason. Jason runs back to the cabin to find Timmy. But when he enters the cabin, he realises that Timmy's gone. Timmy's gone missing. But he finds the colouring book that Timmy was working on before he went out to find the dog. In the middle of the pages of the colouring book is a plant leaf. So he runs into the jungle screaming for Timmy. He's like screaming his head off, like convinced now that the jungle has, for some reason, seen them as a threat and has kidnapped Timmy. So he runs out into the jungle and he's screaming for Timmy. He can't hear anything, but as he gets deeper and deeper into the jungle, he starts to hear this muffled, like a which is Timmy. You can hear Timmy being like kind of smothered by something. So eventually he turns like a corner and sees Timmy like wrapped by plants and being dragged around by plants and kind of suffocating him. He runs over to Timmy and he's like ripping the plants off him, breaking through them, and sees the plants wrapped around the guy's ankles and his mouth, rips all them off, and sees a palm leaf that's curling around Timmy's neck and is going to strangle him, which to me was really scary, because it's like, not only have we seen a dog strangled to death, but we're now seeing a 3.5-year-old kid being strangled. But Timmy runs in and rips all the plants off and drags Timmy out. No, Jason runs in, rips all the plants off, and grabs Timmy, and they run. And they're running and they're running. And as they're running through the jungle, he notices that all the plants are starting to lean in and to trying to grab him and to trying to drag them back into the jungle. And they break out onto the dirt track in front of the shack. And as they're running down the shack toward the dirt track towards the shack, I'm sorry that I keep going back on my words a lot. As they're running down this dirt track, they notice all the trees that are lining the sides of the roads are slowly leaning in, and that leaning in to basically trying to grab them. Again, quite a scary image, really. And they get back to the cabin, and he sits Timmy down and says, kind of, what happened? Where did you go? And he explains that he was sat doing his colouring book when a plant kind of reached through the window and grabbed him and kind of dragged him out into the jungle. So they decide at this point that being on their own is not a good idea. The mum's still out in the jungle doing her investigations, her experiments, and they go to Snake Eye's cabin to ask for help. And he's not actually there, he's out at the moment, because I think he mentioned initially he was going to go fishing, so he's not actually at the cabin. So they go back towards their original shack, the one that they're living in with their mother, or staying in. But as they're trying to go there, the plants start to block their paths, so that they can't actually crawl through or get towards their shack. It's really the jungle's really coming alive now and blocking where they're going. The only choice they've got is to get into the swamp and start to kind of wade towards a closer location to the shack. Like, in a really weird turn of events, they get into the swamp and they put Timmy on his back to try and go through so Timmy doesn't have to swim, when they're attacked by 2 alligators. Now, he manages to get Timmy ashore by this point, but he's faced by the 2 alligators. And I'm not being funny, but 2 alligators against a 12-year-old child is not really it's not a fair fight. The 12-year-old is not going to win, but in this book he does. Spoiler alert. And he wins he's kind of moving around and he picks up these sticks and he jams a stick into one of the eyes of the alligator to puncture the eye. And when the other alligator goes towards him to bite him, he kind of sticks the stick in the other guy's sticks the stick in the throat of the alligator to kind of attack it from the inside. It's really weird. It wasn't my favourite scene because I think it could have been done better. But so yeah, they survive the animal attack and eventually make their way back to the cabin. And they notice as they get to the cabin there are plants everywhere, and I mean everywhere. They're crawling all over the roof, they're climbing up the walls, they're trying to break through the windows. So they go into the cabin to see if the mum's there. And again, the plants are coming through the windows now. They're coming through like holes in the wall. The plants are like infesting this whole house. Anyway, they're in the bedroom for reasons. And the tree kind of crashes through the window and grabs him. And he can't escape because he's stuck on the green sludge that was there from this morning, like when he woke up. So he's struggling against this plant. And then realises that Mum told them about this different plant has water in the leaves. No, it's the same plant, sorry. And so he rips off one of the leaves and he uses the water to kind of wet the liquid on the floor that's keeping him stuck. And he escapes that way. It's a bit weird. It's a bit too convenient. But as he's trying to leave, he gets away from that. Another plant crashes through and grabs him around the waist. No, around the chest. And is literally dragging him out of the window. And it's at this point that Snake Eye appears in the shack and runs into the room and starts hacking away at the plants, which he doesn't like to do because obviously he loves the rainforest, but he's trying to protect the kid. So he's hacking away at the plants and he basically saves them. And he's like, "What have you done? I told you not to attack anything you knew about the Procurim, the legend of the Indians. And I told you that if you do something wrong to the treehouse, that something bad is going to happen." And they're like, we didn't do anything. We don't really know what's going on. But they have no idea why these plants are attacking them. There's no explanation they can see. They've not done anything. I mean, like, I thought the reason why was pretty obvious. So they're in the main part of the house. At this point, shit is getting real. Plants are crashing through windows and blocking their escape outside. They open the front door. There's nowhere, they can't go through there. So they're stuck. There's nowhere they can go. Every possible exit is blocked. When they hear this motor running outside, like a really strange motor sound, and out of nowhere, the plants that are surrounding the front door start dissolving and kind of creeping away. And out of nowhere, the mum appears, and she's using like this silver liquid that she's got on her boat, which is like some sort of weird plant antidote liquid thing. She's pouring it on the plants to get them to disappear. So the plants are disappearing. and she has this silver fluid that can help them. So she gets them all out of the flat, introduces herself to Snake Eyes, which he's a bit wary of. But very quickly he realises that her experiments are the ones that are causing all this to happen. If you didn't already guess this, like 10 chapters ago, if not more. So her experiments, which she's cutting out part of the rainforest, and not only that, but she's planning to bring in machines into the rainforest and attack them, is what's causing all this to happen. If she wasn't doing this, the plants would have stayed dormant. But Snake Eyes is really angry with her because of what she's doing. She's destroying the rainforest, the Everglades, which is like his home, and it's like a precious place to be, which it is, even in real life it is. And she thinks it's illogical, but eventually, for reasons, she starts to believe them, and she realises that what she's doing is wrong. Very quickly, it's a very quick turnaround from "I don't believe what you're saying" to "Okay, I believe you now." So she's really apologetic, and she's like, "I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do." But she decides to lead them all out, and she gets on the boat and drives them all out into the middle of the jungle. And she does this by kind of getting rid of all the plants that are blocking their way with the silver liquid shit. And in the middle of the jungle, she gets out all the lab equipment, all the samples that she's taken, and kind of throws them into the water and basically announces to the Everglades that she's never going to do this again. She's now going to dedicate her life to saving the Everglades. Now, I get trying to stop what's happening, but she has such a quick turnaround from not believing what's going on to believing it. And an even quicker turnaround from "I really want to use the Everglades to make myself a rich person" to "I am never going to hurt the Everglades again. I am going to save them. I am going to dedicate my life work to saving the Everglades." But anyway, whatever, that happens. And she throws all the stuff into the swamp. All the plants retreat back to normal. And that's about it. And Snake Eyes thanks her for saving them all and for returning the rainforest back to normal. And basically says, "I'm glad that you're going to now help the rainforest, but please don't do it around here." And again, the book has like a really cheesy ending. I hope they don't all do. Because like I say, the cheesy ending at the end of Animal Rebellion was the whole, "Ooh, let's get some girly games that we can kiss girls." But at this one, the family, they get all the stuff together, they go to leave, and the mum's like, "Oh, we learned an important lesson now, didn't we?" Yeah. And they're going to leave, and they go, "Oh, there's no place like home." Another Wizard of Oz reference. It's just really cheesy. Like, parents don't... Well, they do say, "I hope you learned a lesson." But when it's life or death, your parent want to go, "I hope we learned a lesson now, didn't we?" But I'll get on to why I think he put that in a minute. So yeah, that's the end of the book. They throw the stuff back into the swamp, learn the lesson, and leave. There's no cliffhanger, no twist at the end or anything like that. The only twist is about the mum being the reason for all this. Now, as you know from my last review, I normally talk about open plot points and things that I don't think are explained very well. But in this book, I don't think there really was anything that wasn't explained particularly well. Like, the whole reason this was happening is because of this rainforest that basically, to survive, attacks anyone that attacks it. And I do like the fact that it had a history behind it, with these Indians attacking it years and years and years and years and years and years ago. So it's got like a historical accuracy to it, so I was okay with that. I thought it was a decent explanation. But other than that, there wasn't really anything that wasn't explained. It explained that the jungle took the dog and killed the dog. I'm guessing the dog was maybe chewing at rainforest, part of the forest. And the rainforest probably associated all of the family together with the mum's experiments, because I don't think the kids actually ever destroyed anything. But I'm happy to accept that the rainforest got attacked by the mother, so it attacked all three of them. So we know that the dog got attacked by the rainforest and kidnapped. The brother got kidnapped out the window. Snake Eyes saved them, but he knows how to deal with it because he's lived there for so long. So there was nothing really that wasn't explained, so I'm quite happy. And again, if you've read my last review, I'm going to keep repeating this for the first couple of reviews till it's just a kind of normal. I like the fact that these books are famous for their good and bad cliffhangers. So I'm going to talk about my favourite and my least favourite cliffhanger from the book. My favourite cliffhanger was Chapter 9, if you're reading along or if you've got the book with you to have a look. And at the end of Chapter 9, it's the cliffhanger where Jason is running through the jungle and he discovers Tanin's lifeless body. He discovered that the dog has been killed. And I thought it was a really good cliffhanger because it was sad. It was unexpected and it was sad. I don't know how I would have responded to this as a kid. I don't know if it would have upset me. But it's just a really sad note to end a cliffhanger on. Because, like I say, everyone loves dogs, but kids in particular love dogs. And don't really grasp the concept of death by this point. So for your family pet who you love and admire to kind of you find it dead, it's got to be really hard for a kid to deal with. So I thought that was a really good cliffhanger. It was a really strong note to end on, that he found the dead dog. And it kind of upped the stakes for what was going on, because by this point, the only thing that had happened really was a few bangs on the ceiling and the lucky stone that went missing. But this kind of really upped the stakes to the fact that this was like a life or death situation. So bravo, MD Spenser, that was a good twist. In terms of my least favourite cliffhanger, now I just want to point out that when I say least favourite cliffhanger, I'm not talking about chapters where they don't end on a cliffhanger, because some books don't. Some books kind of go, it's just the natural end to that storyline or that part of the story, and so it doesn't end on a cliffhanger. So I'm not going to talk about those parts. It's more that when it tries to do a cliffhanger and fails, in my opinion. And for me, this one was on chapter 6, where Snake Eye first appeared and was like, "Have you got any children I can eat?" Or, "Have you got any children I can eat?" Again, a really bad impression, so I apologise again. I just didn't like it. I think this is an example of a cliffhanger that was probably good as a kid, whereas looking at it with adult eyes, it's probably not that good. And I didn't like it. I just think it was a bit of a weird, like why a man would come into a place that he knows but doesn't know the people and say this kind of really creepy stuff to them. Fair enough, he doesn't know the guys and he lives in the jungle, so he's probably like, judging by the fact that he kind of overstays his welcome and doesn't want to leave, he doesn't really know boundaries with people anymore because he's a recluse, he lives on his own. So he doesn't know that what he's saying is probably overstepping the mark. I just didn't really like it. I just thought it was like a cheap cliffhanger, because it was obvious that it wasn't going to be some cannibal. I don't know, it wasn't bad, it was just my least favourite of them all. But yeah, like I say, if anyone's listening to this, including you, MD Spenser, if you do listen to this point, I'm impressed, because I'm brand new to this, so I don't think I'm doing very well, but it's going to take me a few times and a few more subscribers or commenters to convince myself that I'm okay at this. But yeah, have you got any cliffhangers that you liked, any you didn't like? If MD Spenser is listening to by this point, I would be interested to know what cliffhangers you did like, what cliffhangers you didn't like, and why you wrote certain ones, like the dog dying. I'm interested about that one. But yeah, if you like or comment, if you have any cliffhangers that you like from this book, I would like to get some followers or subscribers who have this series, and when I'm going to start announcing on Twitter what book I'm reading, they read it as well, so that we can have some sort of discussion. Like I said it last time, if I eventually get a following, which I hope I do get some sort of following, I would be more than happy to do follow-up, what's the word I'm looking for? Like episodes, where we discuss the books again in like a group point of view. So, for example, say in a year's time I've got quite a substantial following, or got some sort of following, and there's people who have all the different theories and opinions on the first book, which is The Animal Rebellion. I am more than happy to do a follow-up series where we discuss it in more detail. I wouldn't know how that would work exactly. You might have to do some sort of recording over Skype, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, moving on. The next part I normally talk about is the review of the cover. I don't like this cover. It's a good cover for the story. Unlike The Animal Rebellion, where it had the same theme as the story, but didn't really display the same kind of elements of the story. There was animals in it that weren't in the story, which was a shame. so the cover kind of made it look scarier than it was, maybe. This cover is pretty accurate. It shows all the leaves climbing through the open window. I guess it's just a bit of a boring cover, I'm afraid to say. No offense to the guys who designed it. It's just not the most exciting cover for a children's horror book. It wouldn't if I looked, I think that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy it. Or didn't enjoy it, but didn't look forward to it. Was because the cover was a bit blah. It's just not exciting. Whereas on some covers you got zombies and monsters and really cryptic clues or scary images like the animals from book 4. This was just some leaves. So I was just a bit not impressed by the cover. But on to my review of the story itself. I didn't enjoy this one as much as The Animal Rebellion, just to kind of lay it out there. I didn't. I was not saying I didn't enjoy it, but like I said at the beginning, I identified more with elements of The Animal Rebellion than I do The Ghastly Shade of Green. But I did enjoy it. I like the fact the chapters were longer in this one. There was only 20 chapters. So it gave the story a bit more chance to develop. What I don't like sometimes is when they have too many chapters. Now, from flicking through these books when I was younger, or in between, when I kind of kept picking them up and looking at them going, oh, these were cool, I should read these again at some point. I do know that there's one of these books which has at least 40 chapters. I don't know how that's going to go. I'm interested to see, but I hope that's not just going to be cliffhanger, 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 cliffhanger. Because that's literally going to be 1 to 2 pages. What? They're 120-ish pages long, maybe less. And they've got 40 cliffhangers, so that's an average of 3 pages a chapter. So whether there'll be shorter ones that are 1 to 2 pages and whether there'll be longer ones, I don't know. But I liked in this one that chapters were longer because it felt like they weren't forcing in cliffhangers left, right and centre. The story actually developed at quite a nice pace. I do like the idea of the rainforest retaliating, as much as it kind of reminds me of that M. Night Shyamalan film The Happening, which if you've not seen it is about plants that kind of attack humanity. I like the imagery of all the plants leaning in to trap them, and I really loved, there was one image that I thought would be a great cover, which was the dirt track leading up to the shack and all the trees that line the roads leading up to it, blocking out all the sunlight. But when they're running back later on in the book, all the trees are kind of even more bending in, trying to grab them, and I thought that could have been a really spooky image, this creepy shack at the end of a long dirt track with all these trees surrounding it, leaning in to grab 2 characters. I thought that would have been quite cool. But alas, they went with this cover. So yeah, there were some good images. I was really shocked that the kid died. And some of the imagery of the brother having been strangled to death was quite scary. I guess the twist straight away, which was kind of disappointing. The fact that it was the mother's experiments that were causing all this to happen. I kind of knew that from the beginning. I always thought that it would be. So that was a bit of a shame. But it was good. I don't really know what to say, really. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it, because I normally read these books when I get into bed. Whenever I get around to reading them, I kind of settle down and curl up in bed, put the little lamp on, and I tend to read them all in a oneer. I might split it into 2 if I'm particularly tired that night. But I tend to read it all in one, so I get a good memory of what's happened. And I enjoyed it. I mean, like I say, the story went along at a nice pace. There were some good images, some good twists. Except for the last one with the mum, because I guessed that straight away. Some good history with the legend of the Procurim. I think it's Procurim. So it was good. I just didn't feel as attached to the story as I did The Animal Rebellion. I didn't identify with the characters as much. So for that reason, my grade for this one is slightly lower than before. I wasn't as... what's the word I'm looking for? I didn't feel there was as much danger. I don't know why, because I think I don't know. There's no really reason why I didn't. I was going to say because the farm guys actually got attacked and bleeding last time, but this time the dog did get killed, and the brother got strangled, so there was danger there. I don't know, I just didn't enjoy this one as much as The Animal Rebellion. That's just the fact of it. So my rating for this one, I'm going to give it a C+. And the reason that I'm not going to give it a B or a B- is because I know from remembering that there are other books in the series which are more my kind of thing, like monsters and ghouls. Whereas the rainforest attacking people, while it's a nice concept, isn't really one that I want to hear a lot about. So one book is great, I really enjoyed it, but I think there are going to be books that I enjoy more. And I was thinking about this before when I gave my rating to the last book as well. I might change my ratings as I go along. And the way that I'm going to keep track of this is I'm going to keep track of it all myself. However, at the very end of the Shivers series, once I've read all 36 and reviewed all 36, I will do a separate episode where I put a image up of all the ratings that I gave it. And once I've talked about them, then talked about my new ratings, if I've changed any and why I've changed them in relation to other books. And then I'll give it some awards of which were the worst, which were the best, which were my favourite monsters, and vice versa. So this one, I give it a C+ to A Ghastly Shade of Green. Again, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Please like or give this a comment if you've read this book and what you think. MD Spenser, if you're listening, please get in touch. I'd love to speak to you about these books because I love them. And that was it, guys. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you tune in next time. I have picked out of the bag this time. I was actually going to review a Ghost of Fear Street next by R.R. Stein. Well, it says by R.R. Stein, but it's not. But I'll get into that later on. I was going to review the Ghost of Fear Street next because that was one of my favourite series as a kid. But I had to wait for them to be delivered to my house because I got some back at my mum's. Whereas I've brought all the Shivers here and all the Goosebumps Horrorland here. But I'm going to read another Shivers next, and then I'm going to do a different book, a Goosebumps Horrorland or a Ghost of Fear Street. So I've picked out of the little bag that I put things in. And the next book that I'm going to be reviewing is Shivers number 25, A Ghostly Playmate. So please tune in next time for that. And I hope you please subscribe for more, and go on Twitter, it's at Nostalgic Nightmares, take out the vowels, so at NSTLGCNGHTMRS for updates, and get in touch with me if you want to get in touch, and tell me what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right, and what you don't like what I do, anything I can improve on. So until next time, guys, take care of yourselves, and remember, don't go cutting up the rainforest. Good night, guys.